Us humans did the Tasmanian tiger dirty. We have a chance to make up for it by bringing the keystone apex predator back from extinction. An awesome biosciences company called Colossal, in partnership with the Thylacine Integrated Genetic Restoration Research Lab, aims to do just that. Also called thylacines, they were marsupial apex predators that looked kind of like a dog on account of convergent evolution. They had striking stripes radiating from their rump, and they had a thick and stiff tail kind of like a kangaroo. Both males and females had backwards facing pouches. Females reared their young in there, and males used the backwards facing pouch as a protective sheath to protect their nuts and junk. And they could open their jaws just a crazy amount, up to 80 degrees. The last individual thylacine died in captivity in 1936, just 89 years ago. It was in the Hobart Zoo, which was on Australia's island state, Tasmania. That means that Sir David Attenborough was about 9 years old when the last one kicked the bucket. And to add insult to injury, or rather extinction, the last individual, thought to be called Benjamin, died of neglect. He got locked out of his sleeping quarters during a particularly bad case of Tasmanian weather. They'd been granted protective status by the Tasmanian government just a couple months before that, but it was far too little too late. Also, check out the thylacines on the Tasmanian coat of arms. Because for at least 100 years before their extinction, thylacines were subject to rigorous hunting and eradication efforts. The Van Diemen's Land Company paid bounties on them as early as 1830, and the Tasmanian government itself started paying bounties on thylacines starting at the end of the 1800s. Tasmanian tigers had a reputation for killing chickens and sheep that seems to be greatly exaggerated. Like this picture from 1921 was held as proof that they liked themselves a chicken tender, and likely sealed their contempt in the public. But the photo has since been shown to be staged and manipulated. It had been cropped so that you couldn't tell it was in captivity. And an analysis concluded that the specimen was dead and taxidermied, and a chicken was placed in its mouth. And the last known wild thylacine was killed by a man named Wilf Batty, seen here in 1930. So how is Colossal Biosciences going about de-extincting the thylacine, and how will it help local ecosystems? Well, first you gotta sequence their entire genome, and the company announced in January that they had done just that, by sequencing all 3 billion base pairs. It's the best and most complete genome for any extinct animal in existence. The team were able to extract the genome from a well-preserved head of a 110-year-old specimen. They've also identified some 300 genetic differences to their closest living relative, the fat-tailed dunnart. It's a little mouse-like marsupial, and fat-tailed dunnart is a fun thing to say. Even more excitingly, they've already used CRISPR and other gene editing techniques to edit these changes into a cell line of the fat-tailed dunnart grown in a culture in an artificial uterus device. It's a crazy awesome achievement, and with its 300 edits, it's the most edited animal cell to date. Like, we're getting close to getting them back. The next step is to implant a developing thylacine embryo with that edited cell line into a surrogate fat-tailed dunnart mother. And then it'll gestate for an additional 42 days or so. It's crazy to think that a mouse-sized animal could be a surrogate mother to a dog-sized animal, but marsupials have tiny, tiny babies. Thylacine newborns weren't much bigger than a grain of rice. And even crazierly, they have developed top-of-the-line assisted reproductive technologies for the fat-tailed dunnart. And that allows them to induce ovulation to control when the animal goes into estrus, producing multiple ovulating eggs simultaneously. If that doesn't work out, they're also on the very forefront of artificial womb technology. It's gonna happen and I'm super excited about it, but the real winner could be the ecosystems that they were unceremoniously purged from. As a keystone apex predator, thylacines mainly munched on small birds and little marsupials. But they could also take down things like the red-necked wallaby. And the loss of any apex predator throws off the ecosystem's delicate balance. And that affects prey species population dynamics, which has a knock-on effect to the system as a whole. It's the reason why wolves have been reintroduced to Yellowstone. And the rewilding of Tasmanian tigers to Tasmania, and eventually Australia's mainland, could have similar beneficial effects. And that could help rebalance ecosystems that have been struggling since their loss.